There's a hidden truth about the psychology of people who go quiet when they're hurt, and almost all of us get it wrong. When they're in pain, they don't cry, they don't argue, they don't say a word. Most of the time, they respond with two familiar words: "I'm fine." But deep down, what that really means is, "Please, just leave me alone." Out of habit, we start labeling them. You might think they're avoiding things, giving you the silent treatment, or simply not brave enough to face their emotions. But the truth is that silence isn't empty at all. Inside them, there's a storm. Too many thoughts and feelings are clashing at once, so much that the brain basically freezes, making it hard for them to speak, even if they truly want to. If you're someone who tends to shut down when you're hurting, or you feel helpless because someone you care about always goes quiet during arguments, then this video is for you. Today we're going to unpack that quiet exterior through the lens of psychology, and more importantly, how to reach their inner world without hurting each other all over again. To truly understand someone who goes quiet, you have to completely let go of a common misconception, that speaking up or staying silent is a rational choice. In psychology and modern neuroscience, especially through the polyvagal theory by Dr. Stephen Porges, we know that the autonomic nervous system works independently of our will. When facing a threat, and in this case, that threat is emotional pain or intense conflict, the nervous system responds on 3 levels. The first level is social engagement. This is when we're calm and able to use language to say things like, "What you just said hurt me." The second level is fight or flight. As stress rises and the heart starts racing, we argue, raise our voices, or storm off. But when the pain reaches an overwhelming level, when the nervous system decides that arguing won't solve anything and escaping isn't, it activates the most primitive and intense level, the third one, dorsal vagal shutdown, also known as the freeze state. Imagine their body like an electronic device that's short-circuiting from too much current. To keep the system from completely burning out, the safety mechanism automatically shuts everything down. The silence you see is that exact moment the switch flips off. Physiologically, their heart rate drops, their muscles tense up. Most importantly, the part of the brain responsible for logic and language, the prefrontal cortex, temporarily disconnects from the emotional centers, the amygdala. In simple terms, language gets locked. Even if there are thousands of thoughts screaming inside their head, they can't find the voice to turn those thoughts into words. So, when you stand in front of them and push, asking, "Why aren't you saying anything? How long are you going to stay silent?" It's like asking someone with a broken leg to get up and run a marathon. Their silence isn't rejection. It's the most natural biological way to protect their core from falling apart. At that moment, they're using 100% of their energy just to hold themselves together against the force of an emotional storm. The nervous system doesn't just learn to freeze in response to pain overnight. It's a survival mechanism shaped over time. Many people assume the silence comes down to personality, but from a psychological perspective, it's often the result of one of 3 core causes. Cause 1, childhood wounds. No child is born choosing to hide their pain. Kids cry when they're hungry, yell when they're angry, and seek attention when they need it. Expression is instinctive, but psychologist John Bowlby, the founder of attachment theory, showed that how we handle pain as adults reflects how our early caregivers responded to us as children. If a child grows up in an environment where crying is seen as annoying, anger is punished, or sadness is ignored, their brain forms a harsh equation. Showing vulnerability equals losing love equals danger. To survive and avoid abandonment, that child teaches themselves to swallow their tears. They build a quiet fortress and hide inside it. Years later, when facing conflict in relationships, that inner child automatically flips the same switch. Disappearing is the only way to avoid getting hurt again. Cause 2, the shadow of toxic relationships. Many people learn to freeze after going through toxic relationships in adulthood. Imagine you once loved someone who used manipulation, like gaslighting, or constantly twisted your words. Every time you tried to express your feelings, they used your own words against you, turned the situation around, attacked you, or made you the one at fault. You explain, they pick it apart. You cry, they say you're playing the victim. After spending enough time in an environment where anything you say can and will be used against you, your nervous system adapts by shutting down communication. You choose silence not because you have nothing to say, but because you've learned a painful lesson. Speaking only makes things worse, and protecting yourself is safer than trying to be understood. 3. Brain wiring. Finally, there's a cause that has nothing to do with past wounds. Sometimes, silence is simply how someone's brain is naturally wired. We can divide communication styles into two groups. The first group needs to talk it out to understand what they're feeling. During conflict, they think out loud. The more they speak, the clearer things become. But the second group, those who tend to go quiet, work in the opposite way. They need to sort everything out internally before they can speak. Psychology calls them internal processors. For these individuals, especially those with sensitive nervous systems, a loud conflict brings an overwhelming amount of information and emotion. Their brain becomes like an old computer forced to open 100 tabs at once. It immediately overloads. If you push them to respond right away, forcing them to find the right words in that moment, their system can completely crash. The silence you see isn't avoidance or stubbornness. It's simply a loading screen. They need space, a pause from external input, so their brain can organize the chaos before they can reconnect and communicate again. Whether it comes from childhood wounds, the aftermath of a toxic relationship, or simply how their brain is wired, one thing is always true, that silence is never empty. So what's really happening beneath that quiet surface? Let's break down 3 psychological truths that are silently unfolding inside them. Truth 1, their silence is not empty. While the outside world may see them as a calm, almost cold, still lake, beneath that surface is an endless internal conversation. Neuroscientists call this the overactivation of the default mode network, DMN, in the brain. This is the system responsible for self-reflection and predicting the future. When an argument happens, they don't switch off or stop caring like we often assume. In fact, their mind is working at an intensity most people rarely experience. In that deep silence, thousands of questions are colliding at once. Was it my fault? What did I say wrong? What did they mean by that word? If I speak now, will it make things worse? They replay the conversation over and over, dissecting every tiny detail. They're not avoiding the situation. They're stuck in an analysis maze with no clear way out through words. Truth 2, they use silence to protect the relationship. Everyone has a psychological space called the window of tolerance, a concept by Dr. Dan Siegel that describes the state where we can function and communicate normally. But when they're hurt, their nervous system gets pushed outside that window, throwing them into emotional overload. These individuals often have a very sharp awareness of their own limits. They can feel a surge of intense, harsh, and dark emotional energy rising inside them the moment the wound is fresh. They know that if they speak right then, what comes out won't be honest expression. It will be verbal bullets. The harshest, most damaging words they know could leave permanent scars on the other person. So, they choose to stay silent, holding the storm inside to keep it from spilling out and hurting the people they care about. The silence we often see as an attack is actually the strongest shield they have to protect the relationship. Truth 3, the more you push, the more they freeze. And perhaps the most tragic part is what happens when this silence meets external pressure, creating a kind of psychological chase. You've probably seen this before. One person follows the other from room to room, asking over and over, "Why aren't you saying anything? This is disrespectful." But what they don't realize is that for someone who's hurt, each demand feels like trying to force a drowning person to sing. It doesn't help them speak. It pushes their nervous system deeper into a survival freeze state. The pressure to talk right now ends up confirming their worst childhood belief, that their emotions are a burden, and they don't have the right to process pain in their own way. In the end, if they're pushed far enough, they might say something, but it's usually not the truth. It's just something to escape the pressure, cutting off any real connection before it even has a chance to begin. Not being able to see these hidden layers of truth is what quietly builds an invisible wall between people, causing even the best attempts to reconnect to fall into a dead end. But there's one very important thing we need to understand. This silence is not permanent, and it's definitely not a cold, calculated move. Even while they're stuck in that quiet state, a silent evaluation process is still happening inside their nervous system. This evaluation doesn't come from conscious reasoning. It's an instinctive survival mechanism. Their nervous system acts like a radar scanning for signals of safety. They're not expecting the other person to read their mind or perfectly guess what's going on. What they truly need in that moment is acceptance. that the other person can allow them to be silent while they process the overload without judgment or anger. If the other person can step back and give them space without pressure, that action can be more healing than any words. It sends a message to their nervous system. You are safe even when you can't speak. On the other hand, if their silence is ignored or met with frustration, they quietly register that feeling of unsafety. No big argument happens. They just retreat a little deeper into their shell. They adjust how they see the relationship, not to punish you, but because they've just learned something important. Opening up here is not safe. And that's the truly heartbreaking part of this pattern. The biggest cracks often happen in complete silence. When trust slowly erodes without a single word spoken, even the grandest efforts later on may not be enough to repair it. Because the cost of misunderstanding is so high, finding a way out of this cycle becomes more urgent than ever. So how do we reach a closed-off heart without breaking its fragile hinges? The kind of relief they need doesn't come from complicated communication techniques. It comes from one simple idea: presence without demands. If you love someone who tends to go quiet, the greatest gift you can give them is patience, but not the kind where you're silently frustrated. It has to be patient with understanding. Shift your approach. Instead of following them from room to room, instead of standing outside the bathroom door demanding an explanation, choose to step back. Try using a key phrase that helps unlock their nervous system. I can see you're overwhelmed, and I understand you need space. I respect that. I'll be in the living room or going for a short walk. Whenever you're ready, I'm here to listen without judgment. This step back is not abandonment. It's you diffusing their freeze response. When they feel the pressure to respond disappear, their guard naturally lowers, and blood flow gradually returns to the language centers of the brain. They'll come back, not because they're forced to, but because they know their silence has finally been accepted as part of their process. And if you're the one who goes quiet when you're hurt, this part is for you. The way you process emotions is not a flaw or a mistake. You're not cold and you're not uncaring. Your pace is simply slower than the noisy world around you because you're busy working through deeper layers beneath the surface. However, silence can be a shield. But if used for too long, it can turn into a wall that blocks the love you want. The most practical solution for you is to build safe exits. Instead of going completely silent and leaving your partner confused or anxious, try giving a small signal through words or a message. You could say something like, "My mind feels stuck right now and I can't find the words yet. I need about 30 minutes alone to calm down, but I promise I'll come back and talk to you." A simple sentence like that becomes a powerful bridge. It gives you the space to defrost your emotions while reassuring the other person that you're not leaving them. That's how you start taking control of your defense system instead of letting it control you. When we shift our perspective, a surprisingly beautiful truth appears. People who tend to stay quiet, when they finally choose to speak, their words often carry incredible weight and power. In a world where people react instantly with empty or hurtful words, quiet people are the ones who protect emotional integrity. Their words are not impulsive reactions. They are conclusions refined through hundreds of filters of honesty and compassion. They don't throw accusations just to win an argument. When they say they're hurt, it means that pain has truly reached its depth. And when they say they value someone, it's a commitment that has already been tested through the storm of silence. These people are not broken. They are not too much or too hard to understand. They simply experience the world at a depth that not everyone is brave enough to explore. Their silence in the right place is never distance. It's a quiet, genuine presence. And one day, they will find people who can sit with them in that silence without fear. People who understand that silence is not rejection, but an invitation to deeper understanding. If you see yourself in this world of silence, or you're walking beside someone like this, share your story in the comments. Remember that silence is not a flaw. It's proof of a deep soul waiting to be understood with empathy and care. If this video brought you some sense of relief, don't forget to like and share it with others who may also be struggling in their own emotional storms without knowing how to name them. Your understanding today might be exactly the comfort someone has been searching for. I'm Apex. Don't forget to subscribe so we can keep exploring the hidden corners of the mind together. Take care, and I'll see you next time.